to them, because when the government does it, they're just making sure they follow the letter of the law or just pay a fine. Instead, if it's in their best interest to do it the right way, because we hold them liable if they don't, wonder of wonders, they actually start doing it the right way. And all of those smaller companies that couldn't afford the cost of compliance, they can come back into business. And by doing that, you have more providers, which gives you better service and value for your money and more options to choose from. And those smaller competitors can come up with more innovative and cleaner options for the future. The way that we fix this is by dismantling it. There is no reforming cronyism. You simply get rid of the conditions for it by ending the regulations and the power at the federal and state levels that lead to it in the first place. Thank you. I can take two more questions, and then we'll start doing the. There are three up. We'll take three more questions. Go ahead. Hey, how are you?
We hear a lot about ending qualified immunity, asset forfeiture. Can you talk a little more about what police reform looks like for you, and if privatizing the police force is a viable option, a viable solution, or what you think the answer to a militarized police force is?
You're making me smile there. So there are many parts to that. We didn't get here overnight. Police brutality has many different things that are empowering it and making it worse and allowing it to continue. The number one thing, of course, ending qualified immunity. If I infringe on your rights or hurt you, you can take me to court. If a police officer or corrupt government official does that same thing to you, you can't take them to court. Why? Just because of qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is the absurd legal doctrine that if the officer who is potentially being sued thinks what they did was reasonable, they don't get in trouble for it. Imagine if you could go to court and say, Your Honor, I know that I'm being accused of murder and all that, but I think what I did was perfectly reasonable. And the judge going, oh, well, if you think it's reasonable, then case dismissed. That's qualified immunity. And qualified immunity creates a situation like what happened with George Floyd. Derek Chauvin, before he murdered George Floyd, had 17 other complaints against him, including wrongful death. He may have murdered other people. And when the Minneapolis Police Department looked at Derek Chauvin, they made the same cost-benefit analysis that police departments and government agencies make around this country when they encounter the bad apples in their proverbial bunch. They looked at him and said, wow, this cop is bad. He is a bad cop. But if we try to get rid of him, we're going to have to fight the police unions, and it's going to cost us a fortune, and there's no guarantee we'll be able to get rid of him. And thanks to qualified immunity, it didn't cost us anything to keep him on the force, because he and we cannot be sued. So we'll just keep him on the force, and eventually he'll probably end up killing someone and put in jail, and then we can get rid of him. That empowers and incentivizes bad policing and bad government actions, and it punishes good policing and good government actions, because those who actually want to hold bad officers accountable don't ever get it. No one is held accountable. If you end qualified immunity, it flips it all around on its end. Now, when the Minneapolis Police Department and other agencies look at these bad actors, they say, holy crap, we got to get rid of this guy before he costs us a fortune. The police unions will say, holy crap, we got to get rid of this guy before he costs us a fortune. His fellow officers will say, holy crap, we got to get rid of this guy before he costs us a fortune. That is why ending qualified immunity is so important. And there are so many other aspects to this question. Ending the war on drugs, which empowers... Ending the war on drugs, there's so many reasons to end the war on drugs. Specific to this question, what the war on drugs does is it empowers drug cartels and criminal organizations by giving them an entire market that they get to corner, the sale of drugs. But it doesn't end there. In order to be able to do what they do and protect their turf, not only are they violent, they also bribe government officials and police officers, which makes them worse. So it leads to even more corruption. It leads to even more brutality. So that's yet another reason to end the war on drugs. We have to end civil asset forfeiture, which is where the government robs people who have been accused of a crime before trial and uses that money to pay for their prosecution, which, by the way, is a blatant violation of your right, the presumption of innocence and the ability to use your property to pay for your defense. And if by some miracle you are found not guilty or have the charges dropped, you then have to go to court and pay money you don't have because it was taken from you to fight for your stuff back, even though it was just proven in court that they never should have taken it in the first place. Anyone want to take a wild stab at who was the architect for civil asset forfeiture? Joe Biden. So that's why we have to end civil asset forfeiture. We have to end the military surplus program, which is dumping military equipment, and military training. You have police officers that are increasingly getting military training from military contractors to use military equipment that was designed for military applications. And then they're told, now go out into our neighborhoods. All of these things have to end, and many more. We have to end mandatory minimum sentencing. We have to end no-knock raids. We have to end all of these things. Because until we solve the problems, all we're going to get is the same empty rhetorical nonsense that we got from Joe Biden in that debate. Oh, I'm going to have police departments and civil rights groups sit down and talk. That's never happened before, right? They've never talked before. We already know what needs to be done. Do you know why he didn't say what needed to be done? It's one of two reasons, probably both of them. Number one, he's the one who created the problems. And number two, he barely remembers what his name is. So that's how we deal with police brutality. There were two other people that had raised their hands.
I wanna ask this while my son has his headphones on. Hopefully he can hear me. But you and me have spoken about family law issues. And you mentioned qualified immunity. We also discussed absolute immunity with judges. And also the federal and state and welfare incentives that are in place that basically anyone who's ever been through a divorce or a custody battle have gone through and have had their kids taken from them without due process of law, while enduring ridiculous child support amounts to pay, while also paying tens of thousands, if not more, hundreds of thousands of dollars to attorneys to buy back your own children. I spoke with you in length in an interview, and you seemed to get it. And I spoke with Jo briefly, and she wanted to do some more research on what she could do federally in your place. What could you tell everybody? That's why I am a libertarian, because of family law. And these. And these two little boys that are with me, because it's my weekend, while 2 years have gone by, and I'm bankrupt. And there's no reason I haven't been charged with a crime. It's just delaying it in court. And this has been going on for decades, 40, 50 years. And I just want to know, how can you and Joe help, and how can we sort of figure out what to do as we bleed that down into the states and get rid of all this incentivized money to take kids away from good parents?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that question. So you hit the nail on the head for why this is happening in the first place. It's happening for two reasons. Number one, because they can, and number two, because they've incentivized it. So we have a situation wherein the federal government matches funds for child support. If you are a state agency and you have one of two options in front of you, one is shared parenting with little or no child support, where you get much less money, and the other one is an arrangement where one parent has full or most majority custody, and there's much more child support, and you get much more money. Which one puts more money in your coffers? That second arrangement. And the reason they're able to do this is because they have created a system that allows them to do that. And so we have people who want to be in their children's lives, parents who want to be in their children's lives, who are unable to because the court determines, okay, we're going to give this parent the majority or total custody. This parent has to go and pay total child support, and as a result of that, that's what they get stuck with. This system isn't more known about because people aren't allowed to record their proceedings in court. Why? Because it's a total violation of your rights. You have every right to make it known what is happening in court. Courts are not, mad. There's no state secrets happening in there. There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to show everyone who would want to see it what is happening and record for yourselves what is happening in those courts instead of being reliant on their stenographer. There's no reason for that. We also have, and you mentioned it, we talk about qualified immunity. Judges and politicians have something called absolute immunity. They don't even have to pretend that what they did was reasonable. They just get immunity because they did it during the time that they were in office. And so we have judges who blatantly violate the rights of the people right out in the open and are not held accountable, cannot be held accountable because of absolute immunity. Let's be very clear here. Immunity for people needs to end, whether we are talking about corrupt cops, corrupt government officials, corrupt politicians, corrupt judges, corrupt crony businesses, whoever we are talking about. When someone harms you and when it can be demonstrated that they have violated your rights, aggressed upon you, and caused harm to you, they should be every bit as liable for that as anyone else who's standing here.
Yes, sir.
Very clearly.
Yes, sir.
There is also, and I think this is less. I think this is more of the cart pulling the horse than anything here. But there's something we have a presumption that in all cases that the mother should raise the child and the father should go off and pay for the child. And I mean, anyone who has seen what the average American household looks like right now, where both parents are both earning income and helping raise the child, I think that there needs to be, and this is probably something that needs to be handled more at the state level, and I think it would happen if we had a more equitable system that would come from the federal government no longer incentivizing the welfareization of our families. A presumption of shared parenting, all other things being equal. Now, if one of the parents has abuse issues or has, addiction issues or has a reason that there shouldn't be shared parenting, obviously it is within the latitude of the family courts to determine this. But the presumption should be that both parents are there because they actually want to be involved in their children's lives. Of course, that's why they're there. So here are the things that we think should be happening at the federal level. Ending the incentivization of this system by ending, Title IX? Title 4D, Title 4E of the Social Security Act. The other thing that we need to be doing is ending immunity for anyone, including judges in family court. And the other thing that we should be doing is allowing Americans and protecting and affirming your right to record your proceedings so that you can show people what is happening to you. Because in the same way that an increasing number of Americans can no longer deny what is happening with police brutality, because we've all got cameras now and we can all show it as it's happening, and it's now people can no longer deny that it's happening because they're seeing it, sometimes streamed in HD. When that is allowed to happen in courts, the American people who are not being subjected to this system will be able to see what's happening to their fellow Americans that they've been told all along was happening and they didn't want to believe was true. They will not be able to deny it when it is right in their face. Thank you, Cole. Chris. Thank you. Hey man, how are you doing?
Hey Spike, so I have a question. For sure, a lot of people has this question. How will you and Dr. Joe get rid of the Fed and the Federal Reserve? That's the question. Also, will she be there at the next debate debating Joe Biden? If not, she needs to be there.
Victor, thank you for those questions. I'll answer the second one first about the debate. The debate cartel has made it clear that they don't want Joe or any other third-party option in that debate, and we saw why in the first debate. Can you imagine if Joe Jorgensen had been standing between those two fools? Donald Trump saying, "I'm Donald Trump, and I'm running because Joe Biden is terrible and he's corrupt and his kid's a jerk." And then Joe Biden saying, "I'm Joe Biden, I hate Donald Trump, where am I?" And then in between them is someone who will be able to say, "Yeah, you're both terrible. Your name's Joe Biden, you're in Cleveland, and you all created the problem that we are facing, and here are the policies." Something you refuse to even talk about.
Right.
Here are the policies that will actually fix the problem you made. This would be a no-brainer. We'd be sailing to victory.
Yeah.
That's why we're not going to be in the debates. And that is why it is crucial that we work around this crony corporate media system that has been created and this crony rigged system from the debate cartel all the way down to the ballot access laws and everything else. That is why it is incumbent upon you, the grassroots army for human liberty, to take the message to your loved ones and colleagues and family and communities. That is why we have to do it the way that we're doing it, because we're never going to get a fair shake, because they know when we get into office, their whole system is done. As to the first question, how do we end the Federal Reserve? Number one, we audit it. We call for an audit. And when it's determined pretty quickly, it's okay, how often do libertarians applaud auditing?
To the Federal Reserve, yeah.
Yeah, sure. That's the answer. The one time. Anyone else? Boo, audit. Once they see that it is impossible to audit the Fed because A, they are a private agency, they're not, but A, they're private, and B, they don't even know where their money went. That'll lead to the next step of ending the Federal Reserve, which is to end the Federal Reserve. Now, I defer. It's okay. Any time that you want to clap, do not feel like you can. So I will defer to Jo on exactly how she would go about doing this, but I can say this. We actually have a bit of a blueprint for how to do it. Andrew Jackson, when he was president, he did a lot of things that were not good. One of the things that he did do that you could argue was good was he ended the second bank of the United States. Do you know how he did it? No? Okay. The way that he ended it, that wasn't rhetorical. The way that he ended it was by ordering the Department of the Treasury to stop making deposits into the bank. Since the only client of the second bank of the U.S. was the U.S., it went out of business immediately. So that's a way to do it. There's a few ways to do it. A permanent way to do it would be through the legislative process. I'm going to go ahead and take a wild stab and say that the Republicrats are going to fight that tooth and nail, but there's a lot we can do at the executive level to at least greatly diminish the ability of the Federal Reserve to do what it's doing. The number one thing we can be doing is using the bully pulpit, which Trump has effectively used the bully pulpit to push for the Federal Reserve to keep interest rates at effectively negative interest rates. Adjusted for inflation, they are negative interest rates. We can use that same bully pulpit to say, you need to be setting your interest rates to actual market supply and demand instead of this arbitrary keeping it low and just handing money to crony banks. Interesting note here. The Federal Reserve lends money to banks essentially free right now. Pretty much free. Actually, once you adjust for inflation, they're lending it to them at a discount. They then turn around and lend it to you, not for free. They charge you interest. Why? Because how else could they make money off of your back and off of your labor? Let's be very clear. That is the system we have. Theft by banking. And it needs to end. And we will work to end it.
Woo!
Thank you.
Bank of Japan.
Yeah.
Bank of Japan is one of them that they're lending to a line of credit for a couple of days or 84 days.
Okay, yep. It's not, and one of many. One of many. Thank you, Victor. I think there was one more question. Go ahead. No, you can ask after that, and then we're going to have to cut it off after that. I'm sorry. And I'm happy to answer questions, but this is the time that you get to hold a mic. So here you go. What's your name?
Tony. So thank you for making time. I'm a retired veteran and disabled, so I receive a pension, have different benefits. I know you're talking about abolishing the VA, and for the healthcare side, believe me, I'm all on board. But as far as the pension that all veterans receive, with cutting costs, reducing taxes, which is a stream of income for the government, would we have to worry about losing our pensions?
And you said your name Tony, right? Yeah. Tony, thank you for your question. No, we're not cutting anyone's pensions. Now, moving forward, we won't have to pay any new pensions because there won't be combat veterans. So that will be a big part of reducing that moving forward. Speaking to I believe the root of your question is how do we pay for these things while also cutting or preferably eliminating taxation? That's a good question. Here, there are many ways that government can be funded, but first of all, we have to look at what we have right now. Tony, if you and I were to make a business, and the business model, we sell chicken sandwiches, okay? Beautiful, delicious chicken sandwiches. And the way that our business model is made is we go around with guns to all of you and say, give us your money, whatever we think that you owe us, and then after that, we're going to give you as many chicken sandwiches as we feel like you earned by the amount of money that you gave us. We'd go to jail for racketeering, extortion, threats of violence, whatever else, and rightfully so, because we just threatened people with harm and then gave them services afterwards. The fact that we gave them services afterwards doesn't change that what we did was extortion. That's how government works. If we had that kind of model, we wouldn't have to make good chicken sandwiches. We wouldn't even have to put chicken in them. We really wouldn't even have to do sandwiches. We could just really do whatever we wanted because they have to give us money because we have guns to their head. That's how government works. It should not be surprising that an arrangement in which a violent monopoly points guns at all of our heads and tells us to give them whatever they think that they see fit for us to give them, that doesn't lead to good outcomes for us. It shouldn't be surprising that leads to the harmful, abusive, and inequitable outcomes that we face. It's not surprising that leads to massive waste. So then how do we fund government? Well, there's two ways that I know of. Number one is through voluntary fees for services. There are services that government provides that are necessary. Because they are necessary, there's a demand for them. Because there's a demand for them, we are willing to pay for the services that we are using. If there are times that we're not willing to pay for it, or not willing to pay government for it, it means either that we don't want that service or don't want government to provide that service, in which case, in either case, they shouldn't be providing it. So direct fees for services is one way to do that, but there are things like combat veterans pensions, social safety nets, and things like that. Long term, we would like to be able to scale down those things, not by removing the nets, but by putting the ladders back so people are able to climb out of them. But in the meantime, how do we fund them? One really creative idea is a transfer fee. That would be voluntary. Anywhere from, say, 3 to 5%, maybe even lower. Here's how that would work. Let's say I sell you a car for $10,000, okay? And so the 3% transfer fee on that would be $300. We can choose whether we want to pay it. I may want to choose to pay it. You may want to choose to pay it. We may choose that we want to share it. Or we may decide we don't want to pay it. But here's what happens. If the car I sell you is bad, it's a lemon, and you come to me and go, Spike, that car sucks, it's not working, and I go, hey pal, you already bought it, tough on you, and neither one of us paid that transfer fee, you can't take me to court. We don't have government protection for that specific transaction. This incentivizes you, me, or both of us to go ahead and do that transaction so that we are both protected. And in fact, if I'm a good seller, I'm not even gonna let you pay that. I'm gonna say, hey, over here at Crazy Spike's used car lot, you know our cars are good, they're so good that I pay the transfer fee for you. That's how it works. It incentivizes us because it makes sense to pay that transfer fee. It also causes government to keep that transfer fee low, because if it's too high, eventually I go, hey, you know what? Neither one of us want to pay it, it's not worth the protection, right? Same thing like insurance. When you buy stuff and it asks if you want to pay the insurance fee for the electronics or the warranty. It's a similar type of thing. It's a government protection warranty for the things that you're buying. These are the kind of creative and innovative ways that government can fund itself when we take away their ability to just point guns at everyone and say, give me whatever I decide that you need. That is a government. A government that is voluntarily funded is also a government that is truly governing with the consent of the governed. It's also a government that has to do things efficiently because they can't just take more whenever they see fit. So, thank you. I appreciate it. And then you had a question.
Hi, my name's Aaron. I'm from Syracuse, New York, as we like to call it, Syracuse. You're gonna be close to there tomorrow. You're gonna be in Binghamton and Buffalo, and you're gonna see my friends in NY27 talk about crooked politicians. They had to oust a Republican out there for insider trading. But my question is, I had to flee, His Majesty King Cuomo II. So what can a Joe Spike, what can they do? What can you do to save people that live under the tyrannical boot of a governor or a state operation or a state cartel that literally just ransacks businesses and literally puts people out of business and puts people out of homes? What can you do at a federal level to keep the states off of our necks?
Thank you, Aaron. Let's be clear about something, Aaron. The Bill of Rights is supposed to be the prime law in this country. It's supposed to go above everything else. So I know it's a shocker to hear that. That's why when I talk about ending gun control, I say, hey, listen, We're a nation of laws. The law says that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, period. It doesn't say just by the feds. It doesn't say unless there's a crisis. It doesn't say unless I'm scared. It says shall not be infringed. As that relates to your question, when government officials are infringing upon the lives, the rights, and the property of the people, it is incumbent upon the federal government to use the Department of Justice for what it was meant for, actual justice. Another part of that, so what that means is when corrupt government officials can be shown to have corruptly done things that harm people, they should be held accountable, and we will be incredibly aggressive about that. We're going to have a lot of law enforcement agents that will no longer be enforcing victimless crime laws. We're going to have to keep them busy, and I have a feeling we'll be able to do just that. So that's one thing that we'll be doing. The other thing is this, as we were talking about before, politicians have absolute immunity. That needs to end. When a politician can be sued into non-existence, or at least, I guess not non-existent, you can't sue them to death, but you can certainly sue them into being penniless. When that happens, in the same way that we were talking about how crony businesses would self-regulate if they knew they could lose everything, turns out everyone, when they know that they could lose everything, suddenly self-regulates. So a lot of self-regulation will happen when politicians can be sued for the things that they do, that can be demonstrated as directly causing harm, that can be proven in court. That's going to be a powerful way to keep them in check too. The other thing that we can do is to push for libertarians to replace them, which is why when whoever, probably very sharp, runs for governor of New York next time around, we will push very hard for that person to be the next governor of New York, and to push for Steve, wherever Steve is, to be the next governor, for Steve to be the next governor of North Carolina, and for everyone else that's running up and down the ballot. Because libertarians are a very special breed. We aren't career politicians. I get asked all the time, what is your experience in running for vice president? And I talk about, I have experience growing and operating successful businesses, but I pivot back to saying, listen, here's what I don't have experience in. I don't have experience in robbing people. I don't have experience in putting people in cages. I don't have experience in murdering people or sending other people to commit murder. I don't have experience in corruption and graft and theft. I have experience in providing value to my loved ones and my family and my community and doing things in a voluntary way. And that's why I'm running for office. That's why Steve's running for office. That's why Shane is running for office. That's why Liam is running for office. That's why Sean's running for office. That is why Guy's running for office. That's why everyone in the Libertarian Party is running for office. Not to take control, but to give it back to you. And that is the most powerful way, long-term, in a sustainable and vigilant way, that we can end this corruption, is by replacing the people and their ideas of how things should be run with a completely different way of doing it, maximizing human liberty, taking the power out of their hands and putting it back in yours where it always belonged. Thank you. And folks, with that, I'm going to be going over here, and can someone hand me a calendar? Can someone hand me a calendar? I just need a calendar. Do you have a calendar? I just need someone a calendar. Hey, no, I'm sorry. No, that was helpful. Thank you. So, as I said, we are trying to raise funds for this campaign, and so I would be happy. Selfies are free, conversations free. I would be happy to sign anything that you have. I ask for a donation. I'm not going to set a price. I'm not going to enforce it against you. I ask if you can make a contribution in exchange for it. One thing that I have right here, very briefly, before I ran for office, I was a swimwear model. And, thank you. And I know that probably doesn't surprise you when you look at this physique, but what I want to tell you is that I have these here Libertarian Dad Bod calendars. And I am Mr. April. Let me pull this up here. I am Mr. April. And we have these calendars that you can actually get them for $12, or if you'd like for me to sign them, I have a special one-day only price of $40 donation to the campaign, and I will write, where am I on here? I will write a personalized note, and I will sign it to you. It's a personalized note that I will sign to you for the low price of $40 to the campaign. 100% of those funds go to the campaign, and it helps us. It allows us to do the things that we are doing here, and so. But again, I look forward to getting to talk to each and every one of you. I will try my best not to leave here until every single one of you have gotten a chance to talk to me at least briefly. And again, thank you guys for coming. Give yourselves a round of applause. You are the power. Now let's go win this thing. Thank you so much.
Woo! Yeah!
Your next Vice President, Spike Cohen.